delighted today to welcome one official new member to Rotary and two former members who have returned to the fold. We have the order of presentation set up. The first speaker will be Chuck Elliott, not to be confused with Chuck Leifert, our president. He was proposed by his daughter Donna, and she has also been serving as his mentor. Welcome back, Chuck. Then we have Chuck Unn, not to be confused with Chuck Elliott, and this Chuck will be he's our official new member. And Chuck Unn was proposed by Ring Stafford, and his mentor has been Reggie Gaither. And then finally, not to be confused with any of them, we have Grace Lewis. Grace was proposed, which is confusing now, by Laurel Morris, aka Laurel Hicks, and her mentor has been Cheryl Rhodes. So we're excited to learn about these three new members, and they are aware of their time restraints, Mr. Ford. So break a leg, and we'll start with Chuck Elliott.
This is a whole lot prettier and different crowd when I first gave my first new member speech back in probably May of 1974. Say I was nervous back then. I was a young 35-year-old fella, and I think Fred Cloninger was the next youngest person, and they had what I call a group of old men. T. Pearson, Bill Lawson, Ralph Robinson, Fred Cloninger was there, Max Irwin, and of course, still today, you're supposed to call everybody by their first name. And I tell you, back then, I could not call Bill Lawson Bill, or some of the other members that used to be here, Mr. Hillary Lindsay, Hillary, or Mr. Robert Penix, Bob. I just say hello and go on with it. I was born on August 17, 1938 in Salisbury, Maryland, to Robert and Catherine Elliott. Shortly before I started elementary school, we moved to Baltimore. All of my education was in Baltimore, from Wildwood Elementary School to the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, which I graduated from. After Poly, this was a part of the program I really don't like to say, but I'm going to have to say it. I went to the University of Maryland. That's not the problem. I had a great time at Maryland. I partied a lot. I was a pledge of Phi Delta Theta fraternity, Grand Old fraternity. Partied some more, studied a little bit. The next year, I went to Baltimore Junior College, where I graduated with an Associate of Arts degree in construction engineering. Halfway through BJC, I joined the Army Reserves, and back then it was 6 months active duty, 5.5 years active reserves. I took my basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I went to basic seaman school and advanced seaman school at Fort Eustis, Virginia. From there I was assigned to a U-boat. We call it an LCU, Landing Craft Utility. Held tanks, deuce-and-a-half trucks, jeeps, and things like that. And I was also assigned to a Q-boat, which is a command boat which tells the various craft when to hit the beach. I did say Army. I referred to boats and things like that. I referred that I was in the Army's Navy. Let's see. Prior to that, in my work experience, I worked at various grocery stores, starting with my grandfather's in Mardell Springs, Maryland. I worked at some five and dime stores, and I worked for the state of Maryland in their bridge design and location department. I was in the survey crew for a number of years, and after I graduated from Baltimore Junior College, I stayed with the state of Maryland in the bridge design division for a while. I worked briefly after that with the American Oil Company, the old Amoco Company, and then I came to the Atlantic Refining Company. In 1962, moved to Charlotte, back and forth between Baltimore and Charlotte, and in the spring of 1966 was in Charlotte, or this area, for good. Going back, in the fall of 1961, I was at a dance and met what I thought the cutest little girl in the world, Carol Long. still the cutest little girl in the world. Met her one night, called her the next day, which was a Sunday afternoon, for a date. She said, I don't go out with people who call me the same day to go out with them. We went to see The Hustler that night with Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason. We dated off and on, mostly off for a while. And when I finally moved back to Baltimore, she was at a party with me about a year before that, and a friend of mine said, you coming to the party? I said, I don't have a date. But why don't you call Carol Long? So anyway, I did, and she said she was going with somebody, but he was out of town. And this is the line I used: why don't we go for old time's sake? Well, come about 26 days from now, October 19th, which is the day here at the Rotary Club, we'll be married 52 years. Shortly after we moved to Charlotte, the Atlantic Refining Company merged with the Richfield Oil Company of California. A lot of people were leaving the company. A lot of people were being transferred to California. Carol and I did not want to go to California, and we decided to give the Charlotte area a try for another year. It's turned out to be many, many years. Let's see. Okay. I mentioned that Carol and I were married in Baltimore. We lived in Charlotte, and also currently live in Gastonia. Our 3 children were born in Baltimore, Charlotte, and Gastonia. Our oldest, Donna, there she is, was born in Baltimore. She has 2 boys, Cal and Hank. Our next daughter, Beth, she was born in Charlotte. And you've heard me refer to the triplets. They live in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. And our son, Kevin, was born here in Gastonia. The great thing for me about living in Gastonia, all the opportunities I've had, all the nice men and women that I've had the opportunity to work with and do things with. And I've been very fortunate. I've been on the board of directors and president of the Gastonia JCs. I've been the secretary-treasurer of the old Gastonia Industrial Diversification Commission. I've been chairman of the Red Cross. And one year I was the blood program chairman, and we started the blood program for all the high schools here in the county. I've been on the board of directors and the chairman of the Gaston County Economic Development Commission for a while. I've been on the board of directors of the Pioneer Girl Scout Council. Token male there for a while.
Man enough to be a Girl Scout.
That's right. Been on the board of directors for hospice. I've been on the board of directors and been the president of Crisis Assistance Ministry, which I still volunteer. I'm a bag boy, going back to when I used to bag groceries for my grandfather, and I do bag for the backpack program. Back in 2001, the county commission was very nice and awarded me the William Gaston Award, which I appreciate. And also, way back in the early 80s, I was on the board of directors here at our Rotary Club. I want to thank my daughter Donna for sponsoring me, and it certainly is great to be back in the Rotary Club.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Well, to share a little bit about my childhood experiences, I guess it's best to kind of start with the discussion of my mom and dad. I'll give you a little brief bio on them, and then talk about how we came about coming to the United States, and then why I now call the Carolinas my home. And so both my parents were born in Cambodia. They met in the late 70s during an era of the rise of communism in Southeast Asia. As many as you know, back in the 70s and 80s, communism was on the rise and was spreading throughout Vietnam and Cambodia during this area. And the revolt that was led in Cambodia was led by a group called the Khmer Rouge to try to overthrow the government, and they were trying to turn Cambodia away from capitalism back into agriculture. So these rebels were responsible for decimating over 2 million Cambodian lives during this era. And so many of you have probably seen the movie The Killing Fields. If you haven't, I would recommend seeing it. It's a terrific portrayal of the experiences that my parents had to endure for us to be able to come over here to the United States. And so for my parents to be able to escape this, we were forced to flee out of our country of Cambodia, move into and flee into the borders of Thailand for safety. And that's where we were safely greeted and arrived at a refugee camp in Thailand called right outside Prachinburi province. And so that's where I was born in 1981. And we lived there at the camp for about 2 years until 1983. And that's when I was rewarded or awarded entrance here into the United States. So I look back and it's just to look back and see what my parents had to go through. You know, it wasn't really luck that we're here in the United States. It really was just God's grace and also, you know, our veterans. So for all you veterans here in the room, thank you so much for what you've been able to give to me and my family and giving me this opportunity to live here in the United States and this wonderful country now I call my beloved home. So, so fast forward or back to 1983, you know, we moved to Bayou La Batre, which is a little town right outside of Mobile, Alabama. It's right on the Gulf. My parents were in their late 20s, spoke no English, had no idea they even had to learn English. And so I was literally like that kindergarten kid in school that didn't even know how to speak English, didn't know what an ABC was. It was just a bunch of noise and it was like just a catchy rhyme. So as you can tell, I was always the slow one in school. But, you know, Mobile, Alabama was great. My dad, we lived there for about 6 years. My dad was a fisherman there. My mom worked there as a packaged crab meat in a production facility. And so we lived on government assistance, but we did enjoy the great benefits of having all-you-can-eat seafood every single day. So to this day, I still love seafood. And so my brother was born in Bayou La Batre during that time frame, and his name is Sam. He's my little brother. And my name's Chuck, of course, and so our last name's Un, so at that point we're now known as Chicken and Salmon. So if you say my name really fast, it's Chicken, and then you say my brother's name's Salmon, it's Salmon. So our friends were just Chicken and Salmon. And so, but after that, we moved to Fort Mill, South Carolina in December of 1989, and that's where I now call home with my fiancee, Chang, who I've been dating for about 4 years now. Grew up through the Fort Mill school system, and it was a little town back then, but now it's gone to just a bigger, rural, nice suburb of Charlotte, and with close proximity to the city. In high school, I was just that stereotypical, quiet Asian kid that just loved math and science. I don't know why, it just worked out that way. And regardless of what my manager may say, my driving is pretty impeccable. So, in high school, I played trumpet and I was in the marching band. And yes, it may not look like I was a band nerd, but you know, we did win two state titles while I was there, but it wasn't because of me. But anyhow, I also ran track as a sprinter. And I may not look like I'm fast or it may look like I'm running away from trouble, but I was on the 100-meter dash and I also ran the 4x1 relay in high school. And I played a little bit of basketball, and when I mean little, it's because of my height. And as you can tell, I'm vertically challenged. And so those hoop dreams kind of ended when I got posterized every other play and getting elbows to the face. So I realized that was not in the cards for me to be a basketball player. But growing up in America was an adjustment. Especially for my parents, I guess for them, just adjusting to the American culture and the teenage life, it was quite daunting because they weren't used to growing up here. And you know, I think back when my parents or my friends used to call over to the house, and you know, they'd be like, "Hey, is Chuck there?" And my dad would pick up the phone. He'd be like, "Chuck, no home." And I'd go to my friends the next day and I was like, "Dude, I called your house and thought you would be there." And I'm like, "You know what, I'm gonna talk to my dad about that." So I talked to my dad, I'm like, "Dad, you know, I was home. I'm not mad that you didn't tell me, not that I couldn't use the phone, but I was just more mad that you said Chuck no home. It's Chuck's not home." And so if I ever come to you guys and I'm not coming to Rotary and I say Chuck no coming to Rotary, you guys know where I got that from. But all kidding aside though, I mean, I'm really proud of what my parents had to endure to get us over here. And all the horror that I had to see, and just this wonderful, amazing life they've given to us here in the United States, and just being very, very blessed. And so because of their lack of education, they ingrained in my brother and I just hard work and taking every opportunity you have to make yourself better, and stressing the importance of education. And now I look back and I see why it was so important to them, because I feel like they were deprived of it because they never had the opportunity that I had growing up here in the States. And now I know why they really put that on my brother and I to just go out there and just learn. And because I see that they could have been better than who we are today if they would just have the opportunity. So I went on to earn my bachelor's degree from the University of South Carolina, upstate, in accounting, and then afterwards I went to earn my MBA in finance from Winthrop University, and then started my career here in downtown Charlotte for B of A for about 10 years. Worked in several different roles before I started working here at Wells Fargo about 3 years ago, and now I serve as the business relationship manager here for a local community, and I've been working for Gaston for almost a year now. But during my time off outside of work and with my family, I really enjoy traveling with Chang, and try learning how to play golf. So Joe, if you're in the room, I'd love to get some lessons because I'm still in the woods every other hole. Didn't realize how hard it was to hit a ball that's sitting still on a tee. Anyhow, we also during the winter we like to snowboard, and Chang likes to ski. And so it's been a great experience, and thank you everybody for being so welcoming to me here in Gaston, and really feel like this is such a great crowd, and I've been very blessed to meet you guys. And just joining Rotary, I really just was looking for an opportunity to meet with and be engaged with our local community leaders, and I see that here in this room, and I'm very proud that I work for Wells Fargo and an organization that lets me be able to give back to our community and just use my platform as a voice to give our future generation hope and let them know that anything and everything is possible, because if my family can do it and overcome all the horror that we saw and all the life challenges that were given to us, I think anyone can do it. And I just want to give that message to any kid out there that anything's possible if you just try. And so that's why now I serve on the advisory board for the Junior Achievement here in Gaston County, and also I serve on the Gaston County Education Foundation Board of Directors. And so anyhow, very fortunate and blessed again to have this opportunity to be here in front of you, and I really wouldn't be standing here in front of you today if it wasn't for God, like I said, and for our veterans. And so I feel like it's really great to give back, and it's my responsibility to kind of give that favor back, because you guys gave back to a stranger like me, and I wouldn't be here today. So thank you, everybody.
Well, hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Many of you know me. I used to be a member of this club a long time ago. And when you leave and when you come back, you have to do another new member talk. So, for those of you that don't know me, I would like to make one comment. I'll never forget when I did my new member talk before, I did a PowerPoint presentation. And I'll never forget Don Warren walking up to me afterwards and going, "Man, that was great. We need that kind of innovation in this club." And of course, I was really young then. I was like, okay. Now, unfortunately, I didn't bring a PowerPoint today because I wanted to save time for something special after I get done here. But I am Grace Marcine Lewis. And like I said, I've been in this club before. I was born September 30th, 1955 at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. My dad was a Marine. But I was raised up on the Mill Hill in Rock Hill, South Carolina. My childhood was filled with meals. One of the reasons I like Rotary, I like coming for a meal. But meals with family and church. Most of our meals consisted of fried bread, potted meat, my personal favorite, fried bologna with tomato and Duke's mayonnaise. But I did always look forward to our church meals because I was always the first one in line for the deviled eggs. Who likes the deviled eggs when you go to church? My grandma made sure we were in church every Sunday and Vacation Bible School every summer. I eventually left Rock Hill and went out into the world in my little tiny Honda car. I don't know if y'all remember the little tiny ones when they first came out with 4 cylinders. Clothes in the back seat, my pocketbook, and I was ready to go looking for my calling. I married, had 2 wonderful sons. I divorced, I married again, and I married my best boyfriend. And for those of you that know me, and the ones that don't know me, and you're going to learn today, I call my husband boyfriend, so when you hear me, just make sure that's my husband as well, just for clarity. 16 years ago, I took a job at the United Way of Rutherford County as their bookkeeper. And one day, the executive director came in my office and she said, "Have you ever thought about being the campaign director?" Now, that's the person that asks for the money. And I went, "No, I hadn't thought about it, but yes, I would love to do it. How do I do it? What do I have to do?" I did not hesitate to say yes and became the campaign director. In my 15 years of fundraising, I have raised over $60 million in cash, grants, and in-kind giving. Woohoo! I have received my certified fundraising executive credential. I have received the Duke University Certificate in Nonprofit Management. I have also received Arizona State University Lodestar Center for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Innovation, my certificate in Nonprofit Executive Leadership. I'm real proud of that one. And I'm also to say I'm very proud to be a Gaston College graduate. I love the community college system. I think it's the greatest thing going. Ask me questions about it. On second thought, don't, because I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon. I love Rotary. I love being a Rotarian. Thank you to Laurel for bringing me back in. Thank you, Cheryl, for being my mentor. Thank you all for welcoming me back in and being a great network for me. I really love it. Thank you very much.